Okay. All right. We're good. We're good then.
Okay.
Um, Super. So what kind of a conference was this? 3 days. It's pretty long.
I was age tech. So it's my
Age tech.
it's my big focus. Yeah, and it was fantastic. So I'm part of the AARP. They have a collaborative, they have an age tech collaborative, and as a vendor, I'm part of that. And so I was recommended to go to this, the summit in Berkeley. And so I just thought, okay, whatever. It's just, the site didn't look super professional, but when I went, it was amazing. There are all these VC sessions, all these VC presentations, and yeah, loved it. I loved it.
Is that an industry where you work with some companies, some clients? Is that an
Yes.
investment in it? Yes. Okay. Okay.
Yes. It's
Eh,
it's it's on the investment side, and it's also that we're working with clients there. Yeah. And it's so funny because I just realized that in back in 2004, I think 2004. Yeah, we started working with the age tech sector like way back, and we were actually helping senior housing um conglomerates get leads. And so yeah, so it's kind of funny going way back.
I'm not that familiar with H Tech. I mean, I kind of get what the products or services would be like, but what's an example of an H Tech company that you're a big fan of?
So there are a ton of startups. I mean, like Meta is into age tech, Verizon. I mean, obviously the AARP. So the AARP is huge. So what the AARP does, they're a 2 billion company. They're the largest association in the US, and they have between like 39, 40 million subscribers. And they have a collaborative, it's like a venture studio, and they support startups, and they've got like 600 startups in that collaborative, which is just insane. Yeah. So in a sense, they're one of the most active age tech companies out there.
Wow, interesting.
And so we're working with them, and we're part of that the collaborative, and that's just super beneficial for both sides, I think. Yeah.
And are those usually B2C
But there are a
companies or
lot of
B2B?
so there are a lot of B it's usually a mix. They start B2C and then they move into B2B because it's much more easily funded. And the nice thing about B2B is it's complex, but once you make it into B2B, then if you're working with like Blue Cross Blue Shield or with retirement homes, or once you make it to that echelon, then you're all set. So it's like
Mm.
it's kind of like making it into Walmart and into Costco. And that's why B2B is it's kind of the final frontier. You may start with B2C, just to get a proof of concept, and then most of them move into B2B. Yeah.
Curious, what's the what's typically is there a typical marketing strategy for these H Tech companies? Or
Um,
does it depend like each unique company's circumstances?
So it really depends. So we're working with startups, and
Okay.
there it's just fascinating because it's because you have to figure out how do you get them to scale slowly. I mean, obviously with the whole idea of PPC, doing paid search with them, moving them forward step by step, kind of securing ROAS, securing ROI. So it all depends what the play is, where they are in terms of their funding. Some of these companies have been around for years. They have clients. They just need that extra push. So there, it can be fairly easy. Other companies are fairly fresh. Like they may be looking at getting a Series A, but that might be 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. Who knows with the current economy away, but they still want to kind of be proactive in terms of their marketing. Yeah.
So Andreas, that's very interesting. But the main thing I wanted to speak to you about was your philosophy of the way you approach PPC and the way you approach testing as a foundational philosophy of, of
Yes.
of of the way you do things. And it's not something that we marketers, we all know we should do it. We all know it's a foundational, it's critical to do do some testing first. But from what I've seen, it's not often done. Whereas for you, that's sort of the foundational philosophy behind the way you approach marketing, and especially PPC marketing. Where did you get that approach from? Like, what was the origin story of that
I
approach? Why?
think
Yeah.
so. We started like this is about 25 years ago. We started working with startups, obviously. So we started with some very, very early stage startups. LinkedIn was one of them. Skype was another. Yelp was another. So we kind of helped them kind of bridge that initial gap. I mean, I don't even say this tongue in cheek, but they were very small. They were really trying to open up their market spaces. And I have to admit, with LinkedIn, I remember looking at their business model and I was really confused because I asked them, so what's the final product you want to see? What's your goal? And they said, oh, we want the names of our profile of our members to show up at the top of Google. And I was just super confused because up to that point, it's like you want a solution or a product to be at the top, not somebody's name. Like, how does that even work? That makes no sense at all. But then as we're moving forward with them, then I finally got it. That's exactly what they're after to kind of support their membership in the whole search process. And then we figured out that if we published some of that, some of the profile content, if we actually published that to Google, and so I think back then we called it like a Google profile. Then Google would basically just suck it up and kind of vacuum it up and internalize it. But before that, it was all an internal existence, right? So you need to open that up, and so kind of going from the original idea of working with startups as we progressed, we swam upstream. So we worked with bigger and bigger companies. And most recently, we working with multi-billion-dollar companies, which is fun because there's a lot of funding, there's a lot of budget to play with, but it can be frustrating because anything you do is just such a slow, deliberate process, like InfoSec or all those hurdles you have to jump, all those hurdles you have to master basically. And so it kind of took me back to our roots, to the startups, and to working with them. And that's where I realized that you can't go to a startup and say, oh, let's do paid search. Oh, so okay, let's start with let's say Google ads. Let's just start small. Let's start with 10, 20,000 a month. How does that sound? That doesn't work for startup. And so we kind of really backtracked on that idea, which for an enterprise is great. 10, 20,000, so you want us to take it down from 100,000? And we're like, yeah. We'll just start small. But with a startup, you really have to sell the testing. You have to kind of focus on the agility that paid search can provide in terms of kind of opening up markets and even testing ideas, testing hypotheses, or testing messaging. And so that's kind of gotten us back to our roots again. And that's where the whole testing idea comes from. Because so the nice thing is, you take the average startup, they may have dabbled in paid search or PPC, but it's probably been an agency that pushed them toward Google ads, and the same kind of a mentality where, oh, we got to get to at least 10, 20, 30,000 a month, and then we can do something with that because we need the numbers to make decisions. And so we're just really backtracking on that, and we're saying, let's just start really small. You guys, like, everything you're doing is small. You're trying to connect to three distribution sources or clients. You're not looking at 500 of them, right? So let's just kind of test some ideas with you guys, verify them. And the thing I really like is just getting creative. And so because you can start out testing, you can kind of throw out ideas that don't necessarily need a buy-in. They don't necessarily need a potential client to spend money. So it could be looking for beta testers or looking for initial signups. That could be free, right? But at the same time, you're doing testing. So you're testing these markets. And as you get your funding, as you get more budgets, then what you've got is you've got you've got these lists of whatever subscribers or beta testers, but those very easily move to the next phase, i.e., a client, right? And so we're saying the traditional path was, you use focus groups, you get all this data. Some of it may be questionable because how did you find those focus groups? Are they just interested in the $200 that they're making for 2 hours of research? We're saying, why don't you dive right in and actually use like connect to your actual potential clients out there, right? Test with them, and then you can build on that. You've got lists, you can do remarketing to them, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a beautiful thing.
And yeah, this is the stuff that I really thought would be valuable to this audience, Andreas. So yeah, so welcome to the podcast, Andreas. And this is exactly the type of stuff that I wanted to dive into because I think it'll save a lot of marketing leaders, whether they're B2B or B2C. I think it'll save them a lot of headache and risk with this approach that you're taking. Coincidentally, yesterday, I recorded a episode with a gentleman named Ryan Baird, who I also met while I was visiting the Bay Area. Um,
Oh, nice.
and yes, and he had a barbecue where he invited founders and investors in the same room. So I got an invite from Zach to that. What was really cool about it is I was expecting it to be very private, with a big ticket fee. Turned out it was free and open to anybody, which I found really amazing. That's the culture that you guys have there in the Bay Area. You have this very open. Everybody wants to meet other talented people, find out who you are, find out what you're all about, find out what you're working on. How can we work together? But uh, so Ryan, his investment philosophies focus on risk. And it sounds like your
Got it.
marketing philosophy is also kind of, you could say, focus on risk and minimize risk.
That's actually, no, that's a good way of putting it, because sometimes the way I put it is that we help you mitigate the risk of digital marketing in a sense. And I hate to say digital marketing because if you say that, so 25 years ago, if you said digital marketing is like AI, 6 months ago, it's like, oh my God, digital marketing. And we had all these companies that wanted to work with us because we were one of the only reasonably reliable SEO providers. So it's a huge deal. So we could sell a feature, not a benefit or not a value. And I feel it's the same thing. It's the same thing today. I mean, you really have to. I'm really trying to pivot away from kind of say, "Hey, I do digital marketing," because then people just kind of their eyes just glaze over and like, "Okay, yeah, whatever, yeah, okay." Because in their minds, it either doesn't work, or we're
Yep.
doing it already. Okay, whatever,
Yep.
we can't improve it. And so I focus on, like, for startups, I focus on not only letting them know that we can scale what they're doing, but also like we just discussed, the testing, which is so important. And so it's testing content, testing messaging, testing, also kind of testing different markets, right? Because you can kind of play with markets and see if there's reception out there, and see if there are connections that you can build. And so that's what makes this really, really exciting. Yeah. And you don't have to jump in with massive budgets. And the scaling part, to me, the scaling part is really important, because if you're working with a client but they're really just interested in keeping things at kind of a safe level, again, assuming risk, right? Then they're not that compelling for us, because to us, we really like to push in a safe way as much as possible. So really try to figure out, okay, so we're looking at three different markets. We're looking at, I don't know, B2C, B2B, and some other distribution market. And one of them is working out really well. We've got the ROI, we've got the ROAS. It really makes sense. ROAS is, let's say it's at, I don't know. I mean, we've had clients that we've had up to 800 or more percent ROAS. So return on ad spend, that's huge. But then then to us, the next question is, okay, that's great, but it's silly to stay here. How far can we push it? So let's say we're at 800%, which is insane, makes everybody happy. That's sure. Should we just stay here and relax and sit back in our beach chairs and sip pina coladas? Or should we just really push it and see like how far can you go? So 800, let's say, like, would you guys be okay at 400, maybe at 350? And say, okay, great, 350, that's the limit. Great. Let's gently push, 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 and see if we can maybe add 50% to the numbers this month, 120%, 200%, who knows? And that's what makes it really interesting. Yeah.
So basically, this approach allows a company scaling up to really unlock scalable growth in a very
Yes, yes. And to start playing, so okay, let's say, so you've got the startups on the one hand, they have to be careful with everything that they do. So you have a kind of a medium size or larger company, they feel like they've done everything they can in terms of, digital marketing. That's where it's so interesting for us to look at, to kind of push them toward different markets, because then we can do the same thing. We can do that kind of small, like low level testing and kind of push, push, push and see if we can get them, like if they traditionally have been a B2C, but they really want to do B2B. And sometimes people just assume that, oh, B2B, you can't really, B2C makes sense because you're, you know, testing all these consumers, but B2B, I mean, we're looking at maybe, 100 or 200 potential partners. That's where digital marketing doesn't make any sense. I would love to kind of reverse that assumption and say, why don't we test that? Let's kind of go over that, go after that market. So you've got your salespeople, they're going after maybe 10% of the market. That's great because they know them, they're comfortable with that. But kind of let's look at that other, the scary part of the market that you guys, and it's not by scary, I don't mean red ocean, I mean blue ocean, because you have no, because it's just out there, right? You have no idea how to interact with it. Let's test it. Just test slowly. B2B, kind of see, what kind of feedback we get, and then wrap things up. And so
yeah. So it sounds like it also removes this testing approach removes the fear of the unknown as well.
it does. It really does. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
And
so the
and
thing with testing though, I mean, of course, we're always after ROAS, return on ad spend, and ROI, obviously. But initially, we do tell the client you have to trust us, you have to be patient, because the first 30 days, maybe 60 days of testing, of experimentation, of kind of pushing the limit, there will definitely not be any reasonable return on ad spend because we're testing. So you just have to trust us. We just have to push the numbers. We have to kind of play around a little bit. We've got different, let's say, ad groups or different segments that we're testing. Let's say we're testing 12 of them. And then by 30 days, we realize, oh, wow, okay, interesting. 9 out of 12 actually aren't working super well. Let's set those aside, but let's focus on these three specific segments that are getting some traction. And so the first 30 days might look like a complete wash or a complete loss to the outsider, right? But that's where we're saying, okay, trust us. Let's go step by step. Month 2 already looks very different. We're starting to see some numbers, some sign-ups, some subscriptions, or whatever it is. And if it's B2B, it could be a longer play where we look at like micro conversions, where we kind of look at levels of interest, maybe an initial interest in terms of downloads of an ebook or an information piece or something like that. Or like I was saying before, like a beta tester sign up, that we can use that as a barometer. Um, and then we move forward, and then suddenly we're getting sales. We're seeing return on ad spend, and that's what makes it so exciting. But you're right. It's not like the first 30 days is not immediately. There's not an immediate return. What we try to do though is mitigate, because there's so often that I've seen companies that have done testing, and you can see on like an SEM Rush, you can see that somebody came in and said, "Hey, we're going to go from basically zero to let's really push this guy," and having them spend 20, 30, or $100,000 for a month. And then you can see it tapering way off the next month because the feedback was basically, oh shoot, it doesn't work. Pull back everything we've done, everything we've invested, everything we're testing. It doesn't work. Turn it off. Okay, like we're all set. We basically proven this is a lost cause. What I'm saying is don't invest 100,000. Invest small amounts. Invest maybe 3, 4, 5,000. Maybe even less than that for a startup. Do this initial testing, get a feeling for what's working, and then you kind of divide and conquer, and then you move forward, and within 60, 90 days you can have a pretty darn good feeling of segments, verticals, even markets that could be a good target for you. And then you can start basically kind of sending your troops in that direction. You don't want them going into the swamp, you want them being on dry land, basically. Yeah.
Absolutely. And because you're starting off with a small dollar amount, that probably helps for the startup or the company to I guess not worry about the fact that the testing that we're doing isn't converting right away. That allots for a bit more patience on their end because they're just the money they're putting in is just a very small amount. It's experimental, so they probably don't get too stressed out about it.
So they're basically investing in testing, right? And it's not.
Ah, yes.
And if you invest, let's say $5,000, and you get a result from that you can make decisions, you can base decisions on, that's one thing. But if you've invested 120,000, then you got that CEO kind of breathing down your neck saying, well, what the hell happened? We don't have any signups. And you say, oh, it's just testing. Like, that's not gonna.
Yeah, and you mentioned 30, 60, 90 days. And when a marketing professional enters a new role, whether it's working for a company or working indirectly, uh, there is that pressure on the first 30, 60, 90 days. But I think this is something that everyone should do in their first 30, 60, 90 days is some of this testing with PPC, because that will also inform other aspects of their marketing strategy. For example, their messaging, their positioning, which messaging resonates, which positioning resonates. Um, so,
No, I like
uh-huh.
that. I should hire you. Yeah, yeah.
for
No, and
for
actually, as
uh
as you were saying that, I was imagining, like, if I got this new position as a VP of marketing, or
Yep,
whatever,
yep.
that does, to me, that makes a ton of sense. Because I mean, you're kind of being tested as well, right? It could be your probationary period.
Mhm.
And so if you say, hey, I'm running a bunch of tests, and if there's negative feedback, you can say, no, 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 this is okay. This is kind of what I'm expecting. And if you continue playing it safe, you'll just never get anywhere. But with this, you can ultimately, after, like I was saying, 30, 60, 90 days, then you can start scaling. And then the upper echelon is CMO or the CEO or whoever, or, the salespeople, they see an impact, and they see, oh my God, we're getting like 3 times the leads, makes me happy as a salesperson. This marketing is actually working really well. I can start criticizing for crappy MQLs. We're getting some good stuff in here. Yeah, stuff I can sink my teeth into.
That's the bane of a lot of, especially B2B marketing professionals'
Exactly.
existence is there are always complaints about the MQLs.
Yep.
Um, by the way, with ROAS, do you do uh, you said for B2B, it's not direct testing to revenue, it's direct testing to micro points of interest. So for B2B, do you also measure ROAS, or do you just measure like more long term after an extended period of time?
So yeah, we do both. With B2B, it can be a little more difficult because the sales journey could be, I mean, what if it's 3 months? I remember we worked with a huge systems integrator, and one of the first questions I'll ask the VP of marketing or whoever we're working with, hey, what's your lifetime value um, figure per client, just to get an idea. And often, I mean, surprisingly enough, and this is like multi-billion dollar companies, They have no idea. And so I'll just say, okay, is it, I'll just kind of push them toward committing to a ballpark. Are we talking 10,000? Oh, no, no, no. It's more than it? Yeah. Okay. 10 million maybe. And it's like, oh, is it more like 8 million? No, no, it's more like 15, maybe 20. Okay. 20 million. Okay, great. Wow. So we got that established. Now, how long does it take to get there? How long is the sales journey? And they're like, I don't really know. Okay. Is it 6 months? Is it 24 months? And I remember the response I got, I think it's about 18 months. Okay, 18 months. Wow. And see, with 18 months, that is where you have to establish some kind of an interim, kind of a soft conversion. You can, so you don't, because otherwise you'd have to sit around for 18 months, testing stuff and kind of hoping, making, making these huge lists of what you've tested and what it might be leading to. And suddenly you get a sale in the 16th or the 19th month or something like that. That just, it's not very practical. And that's where you look at micro conversions, just general interest, kind of engagement, downloads, because in a market like that, you want to feed as much, or you want to have as much education available as possible, and that's why it drives me nuts when in the B2B market you get hired and then they say, okay, like where we recommend, okay, here's the funnel, here's the top of the funnel, which is education. You're kind of educating your potential clients about your solution, great solution. The bottom is they're ready to buy. And then the response I get drives me nuts when people say, oh, just focus on the bottom of the funnel. That's all we want. And so I say, yeah, but no, you guys are saying 18 months. You guys should have started 18 months ago, right? So do you have do you have leads right now we can remarket to that are at that point? Like we can't just magically jump in, because if you drill into the bottom of the funnel for that kind of a B2B journey, and you were to interview the like the could be the marketing manager who's doing all this research. If you said, okay, so where are you in the decision process? They may say, yeah, we're about 30 days away. We're almost there. And you say, oh, okay, here's another solution. It's like, oh, no, 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 we're all set. We looked at 12 solutions. We narrowed it down to 3. We're still interviewing, but we're down to maybe 2 right now. Like you guys know, we're not considering another one at this point. So you can't just penetrate the bottom of the funnel like that. That's just not realistic. And so you need to cover the top, kind of the education, you know, getting out information you want. I mean, there's studies that say in a typical B2B market, you may have 12, some say 17 points of interaction before the decision to even let a salesperson call you is made, right? So if you send out an ebook and it says, here, click here for us to call you, it's like, there's no way, right? This is a multi-step process. And so in that environment, it really makes sense to kind of track these soft or kind of conversions that are micro conversions, I like to call them, that are taking place. Because with those, you can make a fairly educated decision that, yeah, okay, we're like these campaigns are heading in the right direction because there's interaction, there's feedback, there's, there are downloads, et cetera, et cetera.
They're leading indicators for the revenue to come.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
So Andreas, it sounds like to you, this testing approach, you could probably apply to any area of marketing, whether it's branding, whether it's even visual branding, social media, etc. Is there any area of marketing that you couldn't apply this to? I can't really think of one right now.
I think so here's the nice thing about testing. We have always focused on testing, not as much as we do now. But the testing's always been really nice because in terms of messaging, often there's messaging or landing pages so that add content, possibly the language that you use to try to speak with a client, or the landing page, which is, the first room of your house that you're welcoming people into. It needs to make sense. So if the CMO or the CEO or some kind of a leading force in the company says that's not going to work, I love to kind of push back and say, you know what? Great, let's test it. Let's take what you think works, something you guys have been doing for the last 5 years. Let's kind of also test this wacky idea that we have. Maybe we're way off, and that's where testing is a thing of beauty because it ends up establishing buy-in and trust among the higher echelon of a company because you're basically you're not saying hey, we the agency say that you're full of crap and you have to do this. It's like no, 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 no. You know what? We're going to ask your clients or your prospects what they think, and then you get the feedback, and then you can say, "Oh, wow, looks like the conversions that we tested versus what you have been doing are converting at a rate of 3x. So, are you okay if we kind of push more money in that direction?" And then usually the response is, "Yeah, okay, go ahead and do it, but maybe do a little more testing on the old side, and then we can always get rid of that in 6 months or whatever." But it's a really convenient way to, I mean, in a sense, to let the client decide. And so it's not even like we come in as a testing agent, like we say, test this, we're making recommendations, trust us. But then ultimately the final decision rests on the shoulders of, how your prospects react. And that's super easy and super easy to justify in the end.
And a C-suite, like you said, they basically look at lowering costs, keeping costs minimal,
Right.
reducing risk, and increasing revenue. And you're kind of giving that to them with this approach.
Yep. Yep.
So
And
it
so the way our fee structure works, and this is interesting because it used to be different. It used to be that we just said, okay, here's a base fee, and we'll just do whatever it takes. Like we'll push things if you want us to, we won't if you don't want us to. It's convenient in a way because it's easy to sell because it's kind of taking the risk out of the pricing. But what we're doing now, and that change, I'm trying to remember, maybe 20, about I'd say 7 years ago, where we also charge a percentage of the spend. And so I always preface that. So we're not cheap, but I always preface that by saying that all of that is based on success, obviously. So we're part of the team. We're going to make sure that we are achieving, some kind of success in terms of ROI, ROAS, or numbers of leads or lead sizes, or if we can, if we have access to the CRM numbers, the actual sales on the B2B side, great. And yeah, so it's kind of a natural thing at the end of the day. Yeah.
And I think it's by the way, you just gave me an idea in that, like, if a marketing leader is looking for more budget, maybe they could take that approach is to say, hey, if we by the way, I just thought of this, so it might be crazy. Let me know what you think of it. But basically, a marketing leader at a company saying to, let's say, their finance counterparts or whoever makes decisions on their budget, hey, we're gonna do some testing, um, and we really want to be incentivized to make sure that we have successful ads. So, w- what a small percent of the revenue that our ads drive, let's put that back into our marketing budget.
That's exactly what I push clients to do. No, that's a really good point because in a sense, then like it's a system that works, and it feeds itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and no, I like that a lot because it's almost like when I explain our role, I like to say, view us as part of your team. Okay, it's kind of cheesy, but truly, here, just listen. Look at us as a salesperson with a base, but then also a generous, a generous commission. But, that salesperson makes a ton of money when you guys make a ton of money as well. So at the end of the day, if they ever thought, oh, we're paying these guys too much, let's just pull the plug. Oh, but wait, hold on. If we pull the plug, that means the 20% that they're making, that will destroy the 80% that's going to us. So that makes no sense at all. So in a weird way, having that fee structure in place also enables us to really push a client and to confidently push a client. And we're always looking. So here's an example. We have a client who started with Google Ads. Google Ads seem to work. We don't necessarily always push Google Ads. Sometimes Google Ads just doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and we'll pivot to programmatic or Reddit or even Meta, or just again, it's experimenting, trying to figure things out. And so we had them on Google Ads. And then to us, if we're just doing Google Ads for 3 months and we're not able to increase budgets from our perspective, but from their perspective, increase sales month over month, then something's off, something's wrong. So I will always look at, let's add another platform. Let's look at something crazy like Reddit, for example. Why Reddit? Here's the justification. A lot of techies that you're trying to target, they're definitely on Reddit. Here are a bunch of subreddits that match nicely with your product. Why don't we try that? And so we're always kind of being creative, trying to push, push, push. Whereas if we're just kind of making you know, a, a chunk of money every month, like a kind of like, like a civil servant, basically, like, why would we risk what we're doing by pushing into new frontiers, right? But this way, it kind of makes sense for us to be risky and to kind of push the envelope. I mean, to me, it's also fun because you can expand things and you can see the glee in the VP of marketing's eyes when you're like, look, we improved things by 50%, and you thought you were kind of stuck at this level.
But the space that allows you to take some risk later on, the foundation of it is that safe testing approach that you initially do.
Right. Exactly.
Fantastic. I think,
Exactly.
as you know, Andreas, you work with all kinds of clients in Silicon Valley, in the Bay Area. But I think the way you approach your clients, like for example, you say, "Hey, think of me as part of your team," and a few other things you mentioned. I think I think marketing people on marketing jobs who are working for companies can learn a lot from this approach, especially if they're at a startup who's tight on budget, convincing the founder to pump more resource
Yep.
into marketing.
Or the investors, the VCs, whatever. Right. Right. To say, hey, this is a vehicle to get us more clients, which means you guys will have a better exit. Right. And if you present it that way, there's going to be interest. If you just say, "Oh, we need to do more marketing," the investor is going to push back. The person holding the budget strings is going to say, "Wait, wait, hold on. This is an expense." And so we're trying to kind of reverse that, the idea that marketing is an expense where it really isn't, because if to us it's an investment, and if it's not, then you shouldn't be doing it. Like, if anybody in the organization views it as an expense, then something's off. Then we're not doing our job right.
An investment, and with investments, people always want to reduce risk. Especially these
Of course. Oh,
VCs,
of course. Of
these
course.
investors, and that's why I think your approach basically speaks their language.
As you were saying that, there's one thing I was thinking is the diversification too. I mean, so the risk, mitigating risk. So obviously you want to assume risk to have the highest return. Makes sense. Investor language. But also the diversification. So you may start out with, we usually try to start with two or three platforms, but then ultimately you want to try, test, and hold on, anchor as many platforms as possible, because you don't want your digital marketing dependent on only Google Ads, for example, because things could change overnight, especially like let's say on the SEO side, which is different from paid search. Your site overnight could lose all of the traffic that it's garnered, and that could mean a huge implosion of traffic, i.e. signups, deals, sales, whatever. So right, mitigating risk, but still getting an awesome return. And then, diversifying, in a sense, diversifying your investments or your funds, as you would do as an investment manager too. Yeah.
Andreas, you mentioned Reddit, and myself and a lot of, especially B2B corporate marketers, they've kind of stayed away from Reddit, uh, because we we usually focus on LinkedIn, maybe Google ads, maybe Meta ads. Reddit is it's kind of like X, where there's just a soup of so many different things, where you wouldn't think that your target market, your ICP, might be hanging out at. But more recently, I've been hearing how valuable and high performing Reddit ads can be. Um, and I also, just yesterday, I went to an online CMO conference, and there was one speaker who presented some stats about generative AI search, and how it how you, tips on how to rank there. And one stat that she shared is that Perplexity, um, also Gemini and ChatGPT, but most of all Perplexity, 40% of the time, where it gives you references, it cites Reddit. And ChatGPT 10 to 15%, Gemini 5 to 10%. That's what the stats show. So I just told my team yesterday, we got to get on Reddit. Um, I got to figure out what the strategy is and what works. So, and I'll probably do some testing. But how's the ad scene on Reddit?
You need
You
to
need to
be
be
very focused. So what really helps from our perspective? So here's an example. We're working with the VC and with the VC's portcos, their portfolio companies. So one of the offers that we have for VCs is that we help them with their own marketing. So we do their marketing for free, basically. I mean, they pay for the spend, obviously. And one of the things we're looking at for this VC was Reddit, because so our feeling was Reddit would work really well because of the technical nature of what we're looking for. So we're actually looking at finding partners and additional members for the VC us. And what really the fact that really helped make the point for us is that he himself was very active in some of the subreddits, and that helped. So that feedback helped. So there are two things. Certain subreddits he was active on, and he also went to get information from those subreddits. So we got that data from him. And now we're just starting to roll out a Reddit campaign, and so far it's looking extremely promising. So what I'm so the two things I want to give you here is, number one, like you're saying, Reddit is a very, very interesting market space that has been pretty much ignored because people don't understand the language that you need to speak on Reddit. And number two, you have to be very specific in terms of your targeting. Certain subreddits that would make sense. Also, I guess point three would be, if you can combine, and this is where it kind of ties in with LinkedIn too. If you can combine organic, so your own kind of organic interaction with Reddit, your posts and your activities on Reddit with the paid side, that works extremely well, because then you're kind of marrying both of those. And on Reddit, as I mean, not as extreme as TikTok, but on Reddit, you have to speak a certain language. You have to be, pretty almost playful, pretty techy. If you come in too serious, too professional, it turns off. It could potentially turn off a lot of people. So you have to be aware of that language.
Yeah, so for marketers who are considering Reddit, what does a good strategy look like? Like, are there any companies that do it really well? That I'm sure the companies that do it with you sounds like they're doing quite well. But eh, can you suggest a couple subreddits that we can check out, or a couple companies to follow on Reddit where we can learn good methodology when it comes to advertising on that platform?
So
So
actually,
actually,
that's a
that's a
good
good
that's a good
good
ask,
ask,
because
because
I would
I would
love
love
to,
to,
for what
for
you're
what you're
trying to
trying
do,
to do,
David,
David,
suggest
suggest.
a jam session. And that's something that we offer. So it's called a jam session, where we have an initial and then the main, the primary jam session. The initial one is an intake, where we kind of we try to figure out what you're trying to look for. and kind of develop some solutions. And then we get back with you and we would offer you three gold opportunities, three golden nuggets as we call them. And we could look at Reddit specifically and like you were saying, kind of come up with the subreddits that would make sense. And the reason I'm bringing that up is when you're speaking with a prospect, a lot of times there are all these questions that come up from the prospect side because they're kind of testing you. They're trying to see, hey, can I trust this person? Like what what kind of additional information can I ask for, like case studies or clients that they've worked with? And so we have recently developed this. It's a very simple vehicle, this jam session, which is free, and it's to us like in our parlance, it's really a door opener, like it's a foot in the door in a sense, but it's a beautiful thing because it establishes trust between us and the client. It lets us answer the question about, hey, can we see working with this client long term? But it's also good for the client. Then the client sees, okay, so I could either ask for a whole bunch of case studies or examples or whatever, and they're all, we're trying to match things as much as possible. But this way, the client can see, okay, they are focused on us. They're doing what they do best. And Blue Fusion here is offering like high value, these three golden opportunities. And that's just a very simple way of establishing trust, but also of passing on value. And so if you were just to walk away after that, I would say, okay, that's fine. It's our risk, but it's we get learning out of it, etc. But obviously, I would ask you, hey, did you like what you saw? And if you said yes, then I would see, hey, is there a way we could work together in the future? And so trust is established. Kind of the work, the cadence, res- the initiative, the response on our side, but also for the client. Like if you as a client, if you just don't respond, we might think, hey, this guy could be really difficult to work with in the future. So sure, let's just do this jam session. Then we kind of, encourage them to look somewhere else. But that'd be really interesting. I'd love to do that for you specifically to answer those questions on Reddit. The other thing I wanted to give you for Reddit is if you can, so testing on Reddit is a beautiful thing because it's much, much less expensive than Google or even Microsoft. It's very, very cheap. And then if you get it to work, the ROI can be immense because it's less expensive. So and it's still pretty much a hidden gem. It's not as competitive. Not that many people are playing with it right now, and it really sets you apart. Yeah, it's great, great for remarketing and yeah. So it works. It's a good vehicle.
Well, Andreas, I appreciate you sharing that hidden gem and these other hidden gems that we're going over. And I think, by the way, when you say client, I think marketers who are listening, who are working jobs for companies, they could replace the word client with the business and then apply your approach and have the same effect and results where the business, whoever that is, the CEO, the revenue team, whoever, has that trust in them and has that confidence in
Absolutely.
them.
Yeah. No, no, no. A lot of this can be applied internally. Yeah. I no, I love that. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I was VP of marketing for two software companies way back, so I understand. And this is way back in the early days of digital marketing. We're trying to, I mean, this is you're going to laugh, but we were actually focused on like we're doing SEO way back, and this is like we're focused on Lycos and Alta Vista and Yahoo, and then Google comes along and we're like, wait, what's going on here? There's no news on their home screen. I don't understand. How does this work? What's their business model? This doesn't make any sense. And then Google turned into a crazy hot contender because they were so focused on delivering good results, delivering what people are looking for. Yeah, but that was way back.
Amazing. And speaking of SEO, for you, I understand like you start SEO with paid ads.
Yes.
I found that approach very interesting because oftentimes we do the reverse. So can you tell us a bit about that approach?
The reason we're doing that is that maybe 10 years ago, 10, 11 years ago, you actually got reliable organic data through, your analytics software. So you could see somebody came from Yahoo, from Google, whatever, and here is the search term that they clicked on, or the ad that they clicked on, or I mean, okay, obviously on the organic side, the search term that they clicked on, and here's the landing page that they went to on the website, and here's the product that they bought, and here's what we got out of this. So it was a very convenient way of seizing upon this valuable data and collecting ROI information. ROAS is a little more difficult because how do you do that? Like how much are you spending on SEO really? Because it's the entire content team. It's much more than that. Okay, fine, fine. But at least that way you can see, okay, these specific columns of keywords, I don't even want to call them keywords anymore, of content, of questions, especially now with AI, these are doing something for us. And so you can zero in, just like with paid ads, and you can get the system to work, and you can focus more and more on the landing pages, on the content, on the messaging that works. That stopped working about, as I was saying, 12 years ago. And so now it's very, very, very difficult to measure success on SEO, and SEOs are so frustrated about that. I mean, everybody is, CMOs and VPs of marketing. Um, and so our way around that is, and it's not 100%. You don't get 100% of the data running paid search, but you get a heck of a lot more than with SEO. And so so the first question is, okay, you want to do SEO with us? Great. What content converts? And hardly anybody knows that. They can say, "Oh yeah, we get a lot of traffic on these pages, and we get a ton of visitors over here." But like, what are they actually doing? Very difficult to figure out. There are ways around that, but they're very very questionable in terms of accuracy. And so we actually say you either need to supply us with data that you have, which a lot of company, even huge companies, don't really have, or at least data that's reliable. And then we say, okay, so we need to do at least 30 safer 60, 90 days of paid search with you. Google Ads is good because it's you can really open up the floodgates, and you can look at all sorts of different products, let's say, that they have. You can kind of put that all through the system, and then you get your feedback. You actually get the queries that convert, and you can also find out which landing pages work better than others. You can do testing, right? And so you get all that data back. Now you can take that data, because the paid search data is almost instantaneous. So pretty quickly, like within 24 hours, is this working or not? Okay, getting a few more conversions. Okay, this is good. Let's keep that up. Then you can use that data in on the SEO side, and you can develop content around concepts that will actually net revenue. Because otherwise, what you're doing is you're guessing. And with the problem with SEO, because it's so difficult to measure, it takes you forever to figure out. I mean, okay, so you can see which pages are attracting more visitors. And so you can say, okay, we're getting more visits to this page, and we're assuming it's because of these concepts on these pages. um, but without specific data, you're basically guessing, you're investing, you're waiting for 30, 69, maybe even 6 months to have that churn through the indexes, and get that feedback, and see an increase in traffic. If you have that data ahead of time, the conversion data, then you're all set. Then you just you focus on that, you focus on that content, you move forward, and if then you're actually getting more visitors for, like, on those landing pages, those landing pages converted on the paid side, they probably 80, 90% will convert on the organic side as well. And then organic and paid can work hand in hand because if you can, I mean, I always say if you can control the search engine results page, control as much real estate as possible, you have, paid result, organic result. People see that and they may not necessarily click on the paid result. They may just say, okay, yep, they're up here, they're right there. Okay, let me click on the organic result because of this proof of dominance in a sense. And so having both of those working together, that's a beautiful thing once you get to that point. But again, you need data, you need testing, and that's the way to do it.
Amazing. And I think another reason why, I mean, first of all, you said that approach of doing the keyword research, quote unquote keyword research first, is like outdated now by 12 years. But I think in the past couple of years, the other reason to turn to paid for data is AI search.
Yep.
So people are going to AI to do their searches, and that probably distorts the data that you will get from SEO keyword research.
It
It
would, yeah,
would, yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. The
The thing
thing,
that I say is, okay, AI is definitely on a path to taking over here. Whenever I talk to people, like hardly anybody uses Google anymore. They're all like Perplexity or ChatGPT, whatever. But the actual numbers of the global population and the U.S. population is still very much skewed toward Google. Okay, so I'm not saying you shouldn't focus on AI, but so Google is still the absolute leader here. AI is growing very slowly. It's definitely growing. So don't give up on SEO. And in terms of thinking about AI and SEO together, like don't sweat like there are tips and tricks and little things that you can do to influence picking up on your solutions on your content. But again, how does AI find your solutions, right? A lot of it is because of the content on your website. So if you can rethink the content on your website, kind of get away from the old idea of, oh, keywords and concepts, just really rethink it in terms of questions that people are asking within the AI engines, then you can just go step by step. So just rethink things for an FAQ, and kind of put those questions in there and the answers, obviously, okay. And then you can take it to like a few blog posts, right? And it doesn't have to be as as cheesy as, oh, our customers always asking blah blah blah. It's like, no, I mean, just bring that question up within the topic of a blog, and the AI engines will suck that up. And so if you kind of get it to the long tail thinking, where you're really thinking like ChatGPT, like what you would like the prompts that people are putting into ChatGPT, just a much more sophisticated interaction that we've had compared to, figuring out what kinds of keywords do we think Google's using here. I mean, this is really straightforward. It's just, dumb, long tail questions that people are asking. Really address those. And you can have a lot of fun. You can have a lot of fun with blogs, even with webinars, with videos, whatever. Yeah.
That's a really funny point because, for a moment I thought, well, with AI search, as far as I know, there's no way to get data on what people are putting into their queries. But uh, you just pointed out that it's actually a lot easier to guess than guessing the keywords.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
right.
It in a
In a
weird way,
weird
it
way,
is.
it is.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Amazing.
Right.
Um, Andreas, we've gone a bit over time, well over time, but it's been really fascinating picking your brain on this stuff. Um, but if I could probably wrap it up for uh, anyone in growth, whether they're marketers or founders listening, probably what I would say is that uh, what I've learned from you here is that paid media is basically infrastructure. You should think of it as infrastructure, as part of your marketing engine, so that it's not a negotiable like whether or not you do social media. It's more like it's a must have, like your CRM engine or your website. You have to have it. It's a critical infrastructure for your sales and marketing engine.
I
I
agree with
agree
that.
with that.
I
I
completely
completely
agree with
agree
that.
with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
I
even
even
think at
think
a
at a
minimum,
minimum,
let's say
let's
you've
say
done
you've done
testing
testing
with your
with your solution.
solutions, with your, your product language out there, and it just doesn't work. It's just not as profitable as you'd like to see it. At the very least, the very, very least, do paid search on your brand. And the reason I'm saying that is unless you have a wacky brand that's very difficult to isolate because it's too close to some other brand or is too generic. But if you can really use your brand, your company name and your product names that you've secured, hopefully you've got the IP on them, use those in paid search because they're usually very inexpensive, could be pennies a click, not a big deal. And just imagine if somebody's searching for you and they see right on the front page of the search engine, they see you come up in the paid search and then you come up, of course, organic, whatever. That cements an idea in your potential client's mind immediately. It's like these guys are dominating. These guys know what they're doing. Yeah, yeah. So definitely, and that's very inexpensive. So I'm saying, I'm echoing exactly what you're saying. You need to look at it as like a fixed cost. It's just something you need to do, and at the very least, just focus on your brand.
And start with paid search. As if you're entering a new marketing function, start with paid search, and that'll give you a lot of data and feedback from the market.
It'll answer all of those questions that you're struggling with. Yeah.
Amazing. This was fantastic, Andreas. I think you've shared lots of gems with us here. It's something that we all know we need to do, but no one's usually people don't do it. And the way you've articulated the approach and the framework and the strategy, I think it's going to be very, very helpful for anybody adopting it. Um, Andreas, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Where can people connect with you or find you?
Best
Best
place is
place is
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
I get a ton of emails. I've had my email for 25 years. So unless you know me, you probably won't make it through the spam filter. So if you look for Blue Fusion or Andreas Mueller, my name with Blue Fusion, you'll find me. Send me a DM. Yeah, and we start by offering this jam session, and I'd like to offer that to you, David, as well. A jam session. I think love to follow up with you on that, just to kind of look at Reddit for you and to kind of determine what could be some areas that may make sense for you.
I appreciate that, Andreas, and that sounds great to me. And I'm looking forward to that because I'm really keen on getting into that new territory, and again, doing it in a safe, low risk
Exactly.
way. So I
Exactly.
appreciate that. Andreas, thanks very much once again. And this SEO AI topic is growing and changing very rapidly. So we might need to have you back on to update us on that stuff in the near future. But you've already given us a lot here. So really thank you for coming on.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much.
It
It's
was
been a
fun.
pleasure.
It was fun. It
Yep.
was a pleasure.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
I'll see
I'll
you.
see you.
See you
See you
soon.
soon.
Take care.
Bye.